All right, a couple of things to talk about today. So right now I'm in Ryogoku, and Ryogoku is known for two things. One of which I'm going to get to do, and the other one I'm not, unfortunately. So the thing that I'm going to do here is there's like an art museum that's supposed to be pretty good, and I haven't really done a lot of like the really big ones. I've been doing kind of like little exhibits like here and there when I went to like the Sword Museum. The other thing that this place is known for is this is apparently is like Sumo Central, and it seems like I'm kind of out of like sumo tournament season anyways, but this is Sunday, which happens to be like my 31st birthday, but not quite like Alberta time yet, so you guys have some time to like, send your regards. But anyway, so like the sumo stuff that's going on here, I think that it's closed today, but there's enough stuff kind of going around that I'll get to at least see some like sumo related stuff. Like down the street here, they had little, I guess these like bronze statues of different like sumo wrestlers that had like their handprints sort of in like kind of the side of this little mausoleum on the right side of it. But it's like a little like display, we'll put it that. And I'm going to assume that what that is that I'm looking at is like their handprints of like previous Yokozumas, like guys that are like the grand champions of the sport, and they kind of get out and do like a bunch of different sumo sort of positions and things that you maybe have seen if you'd seen like any sumo on television. So I'm going to see what I can see like in that regard, and then just go like check out this museum. So the idea of this museum is to replicate what Edo, which is the old name for Tokyo, what Edo would look like when this became sort of the political center. So one time there wasn't castles here. This would have been just like a small village. So in this section here, they of course have like some reproductions of what it would have looked like, a few hundred years ago. The other thing that I thought was interesting is actually a pretty immersive exhibit I just got here. You can see that like they've reproduced some like full-size buildings. So like this bridge over here, it's hard to see right now, but there's actually like a full-size model of a building from that time period over here. But just for some fun for the tourists here, like the Japanese and myself. So this is actually, it would have been a carrot. So you would have had like a person in the front and a person in the back actually like physically lifting this thing around. So for a fun little interactive exhibit here, they've allowed some of the locals to just jump in there and take some photos. It's an interesting exhibit in the sense that like you can actually take as many photos as you want, just as long as you don't have the flash. Because a lot of these things you're going to see here are like the real deal. So they're trying to, keep like the lights low and trying to, well, the photographs of course. If you take away the flash, that kind of makes it better for everyone to enjoy. But they've actually got the lights low here to make sure that these antiques are actually preserved as long as possible. So you can also tell if you come in here that they've taken a lot more care to control both the temperature and the humidity. So this is actually like quite a bit more pleasant than everywhere else I go in the country. So they have quite a few actual like pieces. So I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of this thing would have been, but it's a big I don't know, stonefish dragon looking thing. But of all the different places I've gone to, I'm actually surprised I have yet to encounter one of these. So even having gone to like the sword museum, it was mostly just kind of going to get the swords. So one of the things that I know about this is that they didn't use a lot of metal in the suits of armor. So the way that they would go and do it is they would actually have sort of tiles that they would weave together. So that's part of the reason this looks kind of as blocky as it does. You can see like a shoulder piece here. It's actually kind of like a big sheet, so you would actually kind of hang these things over you, and the idea would be that it would be good at glancing off the sword blow, like if someone was like taking a shot at you. And if you got a little closer, you might know that they always add some extra decoration to the face. So in this particular case, he's got like the mustache and the soul patch. And took a lot of extra care to kind of add some detail into his helmet here. Where this case, he's got like a dragon. And I would imagine that some of the finer details you would see here would be reflective of wherever it is your principality actually was. I think it's pretty fair to make a comparison to say that the samurai would have been kind of equivalent of like say the knights in Europe, where on one side you're actually getting on fighting, but the other time you're actually probably somewhere on sort of like the nobility scale. So you would actually have like a reasonable amount of like power per se, like compared to say like regular towns, because from where it is you would live. And I would have to say that like this is probably a pretty expensive thing that they've made here, so you'd have to be a little bit wealthy to be able to afford such a thing. It's kind of one other little like factoid that I actually do know about Japan is that when they started having people from Europe showing up, a lot of them came and started converting, which the Japanese didn't like. So they kicked everybody out and probably disposed of like the people that had converted to Christianity. But the one people that weren't were the Dutch. And actually that's sort of one of these things that there's a little bit of cultural reminiscence here, because the one sort of condiment that you will be sort of familiar with is mayonnaise. That's one of the things that kind of came and then stuck around here. So it's a thing that has kind of found its way into different like Japanese dishes. I wouldn't say a lot, but it's a thing that's here. I think when you kind of get to expose to like these kind of images that you would see in sort of traditional Japan, it probably would then not surprise you that they took to like the style of animation as they had like the sort of the reverence for like anime, because the way that these those murals are set up, it's kind of not unlike sort of the tapestries that you would see in Europe, but it's sort of retelling like a whole story like in print. No, this cool looking thing. This is actually like a particular person's like residence, and of course all this stuff is all gone now because Japan seems like some of these things were destroyed because of war or earthquakes or other things that came, and then some of it was just like we need to build something new, so we got to tear something old down. And they did all these things in really elaborate wood structures, so they weren't really designed to last like for the long haul. And this is part of the reason that Dominic and Dominic's friend Steve suggested we're going to go to Kyoto, because if I wanted to see more of this sort of stuff, that's kind of where that is. This particular thing was interesting, so they have a lot of different stuff on display here. But they have a few examples of the different things they used to use to move water around, so that's obviously what part of this is. Interestingly enough, kind of back on the other side, they had some examples of some of the pipes that they made for their waterworks, both with bringing water in and bringing water out. So in this case, they had like a giant, wooden pipe that's big enough that a person like me could sort of travel through it. That you would have buried underground for bringing in the fresh water. Then they would have other pipes and aqueducts to sort of pull things back out. So there was a long period of time where Japan decided to be very socially isolated. And then that sort of all came to a head at one point when the doors really opened up, partially because choices made inside and partially made choices on the outside. So what you're looking at right now is it's actually beneath like a glass floor, so you can see like standing kind of over top of this thing. This is a model of a building that was built to receive foreign guests, so this particular one looks very British. So the process of Japan opening up and modernizing was a very rapid process, because for a very long time they didn't want to have contact with anybody. So I think that probably resulted in a lot of social and cultural development. But that's probably part of the reason that they were so far behind a lot of the other parts of the world, say like technologically, because everybody else was kind of talking to each other. So I finished up at the museum. It kind of ends up mostly with World War II stuff and the '64 Olympic stuff. And this was outside, and this is actually like a reproduction, but this actually always kind of sticks out as interesting to me because I actually only learned about this sort of recently. So you might notice there's a kind of recognizable symbol in the middle of this. And the cultural transmission wasn't from Germany to here, it was actually the other way. For one reason or another, the leading powers in the Third Reich were grabbing symbols like from other cultures to bring back to sort of build up in Germany, one of which sort of being this one. I don't know enough about like the actual cultural significance, although this actually exists in other places outside of Japan. So I think it would sort of just... There's a couple of different sort of main religions here, and I think you would associate this more with like Buddhist sects than anything else. So not like, say, Shintoism, for example. And the other thing that sticks out to me, if you were to get a little bit closer, one of the things that they always have is kind of like these scary characters sort of nearby. And you'll see this definitely outside of like Buddhist symbols. There'll be like a character on the left and on the right side of the entrance that have sort of like mean-looking faces. I guess it was sort of originally like assumed people came from the West that this was sort of like the deities that people in the East were like worshiping. And this is sort of more kind of like a representation of like your negative emotions. Also that being sort of a character that's kind of trying to scare some of those things away as you're passing through the gates. So as often seems to be the case, I'm looking for one thing and I find something else. So like right in the middle of this like really busy section of the city, near like at one of the busy train stations, I just kind of stumbled upon like this like open field of some sort of water lily or something. So I'm close enough now that I can see that these plants are all floating in water. And of course some are blooming like that guy there. And this is pretty expansive. I think that's actually what I'm looking for over there. There's like a temple kind of on the other side there. But interestingly enough, from over here somewhere, I can hear the taiko drummers. So I'm going to see if I can track those guys down and see what's what. I don't know if this is like a regular thing or it just happens to be some performance. So I spent the last hour or so walking around this park. This is Ueno Park. It's very close to a train station. It's kind of an example of a place that has a lot of the. I think this is probably a bit newer, but it has a lot of very old buildings that managed to not get bombed and not get burned out, and not managed to get earthquaked out. They've kind of added a lot of things to it, so if we were to kind of go farther back there, you would actually see like a carousel for children and a lot of different food stands. But this is another one of those sort of examples of a sharp contrast, where most of the city is a big city, but you'll find kind of pockets like this right next to sections that are like this. So that's probably like some shopping mall. It seems like everything's a shopping mall here. You can see some tower in the back there. And I don't know if you can hear it or not, but we're actually right next to the train station. So in a second here, I'm going to jump back up in that train and get whisked away to some other random place. All right,
let's make it.
We're recording, so everyone in the world's going to know how messy your counter is.
I'm sorry.
It's all right, we'll live. So Dominic and I actually just got back. So there was a long gap there between like events. So Dominic and I and Dominic's friend Steve just kind of went to a beach on Zushi. Right? Sushi Beach. Watch the Japanese run around and play in the sand. And today is sort of like my birthday, so decided to celebrate by getting some blueberry cheesecake and domestic Japanese whiskey. So let's see a lot of advertisements on there. I actually had that yesterday because I've been seeing around everyone. I wanted to try it, so I didn't specifically get the whiskey for the birthday, but like figure might as well enjoy those two things together. So. How do you feel about that?
I feel excited to celebrate the birthday with you.
There you
go. Thanks for coming to Tokyo, man. I
Yeah.
hope you're enjoying the birthday. Hopefully it's very memorable.
Yeah, definitely more memorable than sort of last year in Regina. Not to sort of shoot down Regina, because my friend in Regina is probably watching this, so thank you, Anna. Yeah, that's probably a little bit to say about that. It's like 7 a.m. in in Alberta right now, so I did get like a couple of happy birthdays via Facebook. I'm expecting more from the rest of you. Alright, we'll see you all tomorrow.